And talk about pressure. It's your job to represent your political party in front of really the world. You can explain why your plan is the best for the country. Impress those who may control perhaps your political future. And by the way, you have to follow the new president, Barack Obama. And reaction to Bobby Jindal's Republican response has been swift, and in many cases it has been harsh, especially from conservatives. Some of it may stem from the Louisiana governor's decision to remind Americans about the government's slow response to Hurricane Katrina.
So where we agree, Republicans must be the president's strongest partners. And where we disagree, Republicans have a responsibility to be candid and offer better ideas for a path forward. Today in Washington, some are promising that government will rescue us from the economic storms raging all around us. Those of us who lived through Hurricane Katrina, we have our doubts.
So Matt Lewis is a conservative columnist and a blogger with AOL's Political Machine. Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you.
So what's the grade? I've read what you wrote about it, but I'll let you give it a grade before we get into some of the details. Overall grade.
Well, I think it's probably a D. I mean, clearly it has not gotten a great response. But I would remind everybody out there, first of all, as someone who goes on TV occasionally, you know, I'm very sympathetic. It is tough going on TV, and you know how it is. And reading a teleprompter is something, you know, it's something I'm not even, you know, used to having done this a lot. So I really have a lot of sympathy and empathy for him. But keep in mind, you know, Bill Clinton in 1988 gave the Democratic convention nominating speech. He did horrible. In fact, there were jeers. People cheered when Bill Clinton ended his speech because he was ending it. It certainly didn't hurt him. A couple years ago, Tim Kaine had a very bad, kind of weird instance with his eyebrow during the Democratic response. So my point is just that Bobby Jindal, I don't think this is a career ender for him by any means.
Are you getting soft on me here? Because I was reading in your response and you say, while it is rare for one speech to change a nation's trajectory, it can at least be said that tonight's speech was one step in the right direction. That's what a D gets you, one step in the right direction? You should have been my teacher.
Well, I think, I wrote that last night, and at the time, I have to tell you, I mean, I actually think substantively Jindal's speech was very good. And I also think that, you know, look, he's a young son of immigrants. He's an intellectual policy wonk. And actually, I think that's the problem. He is a policy wonk, a little bit shy. I think the speech was actually very good, but what got panned is his delivery. And
hang on
you can't take that away.
Because I want to bring up some substance that got panned. I want to play conservative writer Andrew Sullivan, and here's what he said.
Wait, Andrew Sullivan's not a conservative.
Well, he says he is. We can debate that later, but here's what he said. He says, in part, does a Republican seriously want to bring up Katrina? It was also odd for Jindal to keep talking about the need for tax cuts. He gave no alternative proposal on the financial collapse and tried to attack government spending. So that's what he said. That's not style. That's not the way he walked out. That's not perhaps the way he spoke. That's the style. I mean, that's the substance behind the style.
Right. But I think that conservatives who were critiquing Jindal, the problem that conservatives have is they were hoping for this really sort of great hope. You know, finally we're going to have, you know, because Jindal had been hyped and we were really hoping for someone who was a great orator. That maybe is not who Jindal is. Andrew Sullivan is not a conservative. He's a liberal, in fact. He used to be a conservative, maybe, and his critique of the policy is something you would hear from a liberal. I just have to say that we have to agree to disagree. Yeah. I think that Jindal was maybe smart to bring up Katrina because he's turning the page from the Bush administration's failings and talking about the new future. And he did a great job during the hurricane last year as governor of Louisiana.
I want to talk a little bit about the tone. Yesterday I was with a focus group in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. 32 people, half the room voted for McCain, half the room voted for President Obama. And they, unlike what you wrote about the tone, you felt that Governor Jindal was positive and he kind of took the high road. They didn't have that same response. I want to play what the average voter said to me last night.
The governor of Louisiana spoke, and how many times did he say Republican, Democrat? I mean, when President Obama speaks, it's American. That's what it's all about.
And again, half this room voted for Mr. McCain, and they consider themselves to be Republican. Why is there a disconnect from what we're seeing, not only from that focus group, but in the polls about the tone coming from the Republicans?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, I do think you have to give a tremendous advantage to Barack Obama when you're at the State of the It's like a rock concert. People are giving you standing ovations, and then you go to, little Bobby Jindal sort of by himself talking to a camera.
He'll love that
it's
you just called him little Bobby Jindal. That's really going to help his career.
Yeah, it's tough. I wouldn't want to be in his situation giving the response. It's just you're sort of set up to fail in that regard. So I think that you have to take that into consideration. But if you look at actually what Bobby Jindal said, he never really criticized Barack Obama. He did talk about the Democrats in Congress and their leadership, and I think that was pretty shrewd of him. But look, the American people right now, Barack Obama is extremely popular. He's obviously doing something right in terms of public relations. But I would remind you that at one point, George W. Bush also had an 80% approval rating. So I might be here in a couple years, maybe talking, things will be a little bit differently.
Well, Matt, you may end up like Andrew Sullivan. Someone may be questioning your conservative values here with the way you're just talking. Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, the story